Okay, let's start. First of all, thanks Max for the invitation, and so far I think it's super interesting and super nice. A lot of nice concept to bring home. So what I will be presenting now is a bit of how we do evaluation of R&I policies at the European Commission. So I'm an economist there and the DG General, Director General for Research and Innovation in the Chief Economist Unit. So basically what we do, we measure, evaluate, and track the performance of the European Union in R&I, as well as we evaluate the framework programs. So Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, and all the previous FPs. So let's start. First of all, I will start with an overarching description of how is the EU doing and what are the biggest challenges that we see in the horizon, and then how do we try and plan to tackle them. First of all, so why is R&I important for the European Union from a political perspective? These are very important questions, and it's not that obvious because it goes beyond simple economic reasoning. The first one is, of course, population aging. We need higher productivity growth, tackling the productivity divide and the secular decline, because European population is aging. And so we need to be able to produce more with less, and innovation and research is one of the best ways to do so. Then we have migratory pressures, which are fostered both by geopolitical uncertainties and by climate change, natural disasters, which may put strain on the European socio-economic models. So again, more productivity growth is required to maintain its own fiscal viability. The geopolitical developments, now we are discussing a lot about economic security, technological sovereignty, the capacity of the EU to have access to those technologies which are important to reach its political goals, such as the Green Deal, is very important. So tackling unilateral dependencies, an example, is very important. And climate change. Many studies have shown that if we want to reach our 2050 net zero goals, at least 35% of those CO2 reductions are depending upon new technologies. So again, R&I is very crucial also for our climate goals. So this is why it's important, but how is the EU doing in succeeding in this objective? Well, this is what we call the EU triangle of innovation. We have three main problems which are important to be tackled if we want to succeed. The first one is that we have a bit of an underutilized ecosystem. If we look and we compare the European Union to our international competitors, US and China, we underperform in most of the metrics. In terms of R&D intensity, in terms of access to capital, in terms of excellence, we are below. There's a technology gap. European publications tend to be of lower quality compared to those of the US, and our technological specialization tend to be on less sophisticated technologies. And also, if you look at the R&D specialization within the industry, we specialize in sectors which are low tech intensive compared to the United States and recently also China. Finally, innovation divide. We have a very large territorial disparities, and the connections across regions and member states are not technologically driven, but more spatially driven. This is very sharp in comparison to the US, where instead connections is driven by technological similarities and not by geographical closeness. So these are the triangle of our triangle of innovations, which now I will explore with you. So most of the descriptives that I will be showing you are coming from the Science, Research, Innovation and Performance report of the EU, which is a report we produce at the Chief Economist Unit. So this is from the old edition, and what you will be seeing now is some updated graph coming from the new editions, which will be coming out in 3 months, in June, July, 2024. So first of all, as you may know, the EU underperform in terms of R&D intensity. This is a structural problem. As you can see, China has overcome us in 2019, and of course, US and Japan are way above. The drivers of this problem, I will show you a bit better later, but are both structural and intrinsic. So both related to the structure of the economy, as well as within each sector, how intensive is the European Union companies in terms of private spending. Again, this is driven mostly by private spending, private R&D, because public R&D is very comparable in terms of intensity to the US and Japan. This is our target. So in the EU, we have a 3% target, which, as you can see, we never managed to reach, despite the increase in the R&D intensity spending. GDP growth go up, and it has actually increased in the past 2 years, highlighting that we are not still fixing the problem. If you look at another very crucial element is venture capital. If you want to invest in high-risk technologies, access to finance is one of the main drivers. The EU is still heavily reliant on banks, on bank loan, also for digital technologies, as an example. And the US has almost 7 times more venture capital. What is very striking here is that even for seed, the first stage, the US has almost as much as the EU has for the later stage. So of course, then this makes a huge difference for our performances in the most sophisticated and complex technologies, as I will show you.
So the distinction here would just be who carries the risk, or
sorry?
Because you said like it's all bank driven. The distinction is who is like the residual claimant.
Yes, and also because banks are much less likely to finance innovation projects because they're much more reliant on what do you have to back up with your proposals. And there is a lot of evidence showing how there's a negative correlation between bank financing and the riskiness of the company, of the project, or the innovativeness of the firm which is getting financed. Yes.
Where do private donations to universities feature there? Is it private investment in R&D?
Sorry?
Private gifts to universities.
So that will be included in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be private investment in R&D? Is that it? Or private?
So if it's goes to private universities, it's going to be included within the private R&D. Yes. Okay, so another interesting dimension is the universities. So as we know, innovation activity is very geographically concentrated by its endowment and characteristics. If we look at the distribution of university in terms of quality, we use the QS World Ranking, you can clearly see how the US and UK really perform high in the top universities, but then plateau lower in the medium high, whereas the EU has a bit of an opposite distribution approach. It doesn't perform very well in the top 50, but then has many medium high universities. So there is a bit of a prioritization of accessibility to education over a very restricted pool of incredibly high quality institutions and universities. A bit of a different philosophical approach, but that can have difference in the innovation outputs.
I guess that's presumably tied also to the fact that education and research are so tied together, right? It's like,
yes, but if
presumably a good motivation for this is that you want to have more broadly accessible education, which is different from the question of whether you want to concentrate science funding.
Yes, so these are a bit of the 2 dimensions. Now is the production of knowledge and the diffusion of knowledge, right? And it's about how do you then redistribute the gain or the innovations that are coming from the top elite institutions. In case you have top elite, you need to redistribute after, no? If you have it a more broad spread, as in the EU, the redistribution probably might be less of a problem from a policy perspective. But yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's instead look, this is still, okay. What about scientific publications? As we can see here, we have the rise of China. Scientific publication has incredibly increased, and China's role has been increasingly become high. And the pictures does look slightly less impressive in terms of high quality publication, like cited. However, it's still there. So this is not just a mass paper factory kind of effect. It's very similar as well in the high quality. As you can see, the EU has been diminishing. However, the reduction of the increase of China is mostly at the expense of the US. That is not because EU has been more resilient, but because of the sectoral specialization in the scientific publication activity, where the US and China are competing on the same fields. We are talking about ICT, engineering, more scientific fields, whereas the EU is mostly specialized in history, humanistic fields, which are fields in which China does not specialize, and that's why you see this slightly plateau decreasing trend for the EU. Oops. So what if we look at patents applications? Same pictures. So China again is increasing very strong at the expense of both the EU and the United States, which again give us a bit of the same picture in terms of trends. Now, going back to the R&D, well, why is the EU less R&D spending compared to the US? It's both intrinsic and structural. So on the left, you can see the intrinsic. So the EU is specialized. The economy is specialized more in the automotive sector, whereas the EU more ICT, software, hardware, and health. So these are sectors which, in average, are more R&D intensive. So by structurally, then we will have that the EU has lower R&D intensity because it's focused in a sector such as the automotive, which is less R&D intensive. But it's not only that; it's also intrinsic. If we look at the R&D intensity within each sector, you can see that within each sector, the EU health sector is less R&D intensive than the US health sector. Same for hardware, same for software. The only exception is automotive, in which the EU is slightly more R&D intensive. So these two dimensions, both the structural and intrinsic factor, are two of the drivers which explain why the EU has a lower level of R&D. And this also can show you a bit of the evolution. So in 2003, you can see that the biggest companies across EU, US, and Japan were all from the automotive. As time has passed, the US has moved toward more high-intensive in terms of technology industries, such as the software and ICT, whereas the EU is still locked in the automotive. So this is just another way of seeing the picture of before. There is a structural dimension which is leading in our underperformance in terms of R&D due to the fact that we are not changing with the changes of the world. Mm-hmm. No. Okay. Yes.
For example, we think about R&D in pharma.
Yeah.
I was recently seeing this presentation by Aaron Biggs making the point that somehow the fact that prices in pharma are so high in the US and lower in the EU is because the EU doesn't have much money to spend. That doesn't spend much money in R&D, so much of the burden on R&D in pharma is faced by the US. So not spending that much money in R&D, in that case, may not be necessarily something which is bad from a welfare perspective in the EU.
Yes, no, absolutely. So that is one dimension. Is like the efficiency of trades. No, if the US can take the burden of the R&D cost for developing a new product, and then we can get it at a cheaper price, that's good for us. It gets complicated when geopolitical conversations enter into the discussion, because today is the US, if tomorrow is China or other countries. You want to have a broader pool of partners with whom you can, let's say, diversify, so that you do not have unilateral dependencies. Is what we call open strategic autonomy. So as open as possible, as close as necessary, which of course in the case of the US is very good for us, but you also want at least the capacity to access. In that case, it's good, but in other cases, it may not be as good. So, okay, Now let's move to science. So here I'm showing you the world share of the top 10% most cited publication by country, region, and scientific field. As you can see, the EU is specialized in quality publication only in historical studies, basically. Don't get scared by the economics and business. This is because it's top 10%. If you go at the top 1%, then US just take everything. But as an overall picture, really give you the design of the world effort in terms of science production. So you have the EU, humanities, and then you have the US, health, and then you have China, ICT, digital technologies. And this pattern we will see identical in patents activities. And of course, these kind of raise, again, questions in terms of the technology gap in which the European Union may be falling. Let's look also at the patents. Again, similar discussions in the so-called key enabling technologies. I'm plotting here a few. The EU is underperforming compared to the international competitors, with the only exceptions of manufacturing, of course, thanks to the strong German industry which we have. However, on green patents, that's where we are strong compared to other countries. And that's probably also a little success story coming from the big political effort which has been pushed to have more innovation activities to succeed in the green transition. Now, what about the innovation divide? As you may expect, so this is a European Innovation Scoreboard. It's a composite indicator which put different variables to make a measurement of regional innovativeness. You can see the EU is very divided in terms of innovativeness, but that's not, it's a problem that can be addressed by linking together, no? And perhaps nurturing the different technological specialization of the different regions. And unfortunately, as you can see here, no, different regions may have different potential to develop different key technologies. This is an analysis coming from complexity economics. I will go back to this after, but basically based on the patenting activity that a region have, you can compute a so-called related density added, which tell you how mature is that region to develop a certain technology based on the technology which are related to that technology before then arising. So you may want to put water where there is green grass and not in the desert, but based on the technology that may change. So again, the different regions have different potential to develop a certain technology, but to do that, you need to make them communicate so that the technology diffuse. And unfortunately, the co-patenting activity in the EU, as I was mentioning before, is very stuck at the border. It doesn't cross the border. Most of it is within the same country and doesn't go beyond. And this seems to be pretty of a structural problem. As you have seen, it hasn't changed much from 1978 to 2022, which means something has to be done in a more strong fashion.
Is that due to the lack of legal harmonization?
Yes, that is, of course, that's a failure of managing to have more integrated European innovation ecosystem. In Europe, we have ERA, the European Research Era. However, collaborating, getting a grant with other countries is, of course, difficult. This is one of the main objectives of European Framework Program, Horizon. One of the requirements to get an Horizon funding, unless it's the ERC, but if it's like for companies, as an example, so co-patenting activity, is to get at least 3 different countries that are companies from 3 different countries which are participating. So one of the objectives of Horizon Europe is indeed to promote cross-country collaboration to break these silos. However, at least from the descriptive, it doesn't seem that the situation has improved so much. And this is a very different picture if you compare to the different regions in the US. In the US, you absolutely don't see anything like that. They're all collaborating with key universities across different, very far away regions. Whereas in Europe, if you look at the network, I don't have it here, but we have in the report, Paris collaborate with all the little cities around Paris, Berlin with all the little cities along Berlin. Paris and Berlin may collaborate with each other, but much below the real technological potential that they would have if there were not those language friction, regulatory frictions that instead are there. So this is a bit of the triangle of innovation, the problems that we need to tackle. What is the EU doing about this? So this is a bit of the current framework given the challenges that we have had. So the technological sovereignty is what I was mentioning before, that it is important to take the gains from international trades and collaborations, or wherever we need to have the ability, either in-house or through partners, to have access to the technologies which are important for achieving our goals. Greening, there is discussion now of de-risking, right? Global supply chain disruptions. It's important to have the manufacturing capabilities to deliver on the production of the green products which we need, regardless of whether there are geopolitical uncertainties. And inclusion. It's being sure that the green transition and the digital transitions are not only on the shoulders of the laggards regions and the weaker layers of society. And for each of these dimensions, we have different policies in place. Of course, you can see Repower EU, Horizon Europe, the STEP, the Just Transition Fund, the AI Act just approved, the Digital Market Act. So those are all the different policies with the objective of reaching the definition of competitiveness, which is not only productivity growth, but a productivity growth which is respectful of the planet, so within the planetary boundaries, and also that doesn't leave nobody behind. A little bit of a description of some of these policies. Of course, you know, the RF, very important, the fact that there are rules on how much minimum of the project of the Resilience Recovery Fund have to go to climate and to digital objectives. And of course, the Repower EU to weaken our dependency from Russian gas. This is the new revamped industrial policies to ensure technological sovereignty. We have the Net Zero Industry Act, the STEP, the Critical Raw Material Act. So here we have the innovation dimension, no? To finance key technologies which are important, but as well the capacity of producing the products which are linked to those technologies. And all of this goes in line with Horizon. So the framework program of the European Union, here you can see a little bit its history. So it started with FP1, 2, 3. You can see the size in terms of monetary relevance, how it has increased. But also the philosophy behind the framework program has evolved with time. So at the very beginning, it was mostly about excellence, no? Fixing market failures, competitiveness. Then it evolved a bit more into fixing network failures. So ensuring that we were breaking those silos, either cross-regional or cross different field of research. And so we have ERA, right? And then we moved instead more toward the SDGs, so societal challenges. So the United Nations SDGs, so putting a bit of a directionality into how R&I policy is done, which is not only done so to fix the market failure or to increase the network among the innovation actors, but also to tilt the ground of the research towards some objectives which we define as important, such as the climate change or social justice. And then with Horizon Europe, with emissions and the partnership in which you really try to put the private sector pay for part of the project that the Horizon is financing. Now, this is what I was describing. It's the philosophy of the intervention, how it has evolved, right? We move away from just addressing market failures into thinking about the networks of the innovation ecosystem. and then further to directionality. So there are some political priorities such as climate change, which we may want to address, and to put some pressure on that. And in order to do all of this, we have the so-called 4Ds. So how do we ensure that our policies are going in the right direction? Well, we have the additionality. We want to be sure that what we do is improving compared to if we didn't intervene at all, right? Directing change. So we want to put some money on those technologies which are more likely to be productive enhancing. Scientific diplomacy. The world is complex, and we want to select those partners with whom to work so that we have high complementarities in terms of technology with the people that we are collaborating, so to maximize efficiency, and a distributed ecosystem. So breaking the silos and having more cross-country and cross-field collaborations. For each of those, we are trying to develop a framework of evaluation and measurement. And here I have two, which I will go over. So the first one is this working paper on the global position of the EU in complex technologies. And the second one is the counterfactual analysis that we did for Horizon 2020. I will go through them. Okay, so complex technologies, directing change, and scientific diplomacy. This doesn't like me. Okay. So first of all, for those that do not know or are not familiar for what economic complexity literature is, so it's basically started with Dalgo and Hasman in 2009. They started using machine learning and trade patterns to measure through network and interaction of different regions the complexity of different countries or regions' production ecosystem. So they were basically using a matrix with countries and products, and they were putting in each cell the trade between that country for that product. And then you get this very big matrix, and you can use some machine learning, some algorithms to construct a degree of complexity, of sophistication for each country, for each economy, and for each product. And the idea is that basically much of the complexity of a country is not only derived by how big its GDP is, but by the hidden capabilities that that country has and the products that can produce. So a rich country is not just a country with a bigger GDP, but it's a country which has some hidden capacity and know-how to produce certain products which otherwise other countries do not have the instruments to produce. And that's why we haven't seen a huge catch-up for certain low-income countries, is because unlocking the skills and the know-how for certain products is not as easy and is not as linear. And using trade data, you can basically construct those indexes which describe this phenomenon. So what we did is what I call a bit of an Orwellian approach. So not all technologies all technologies are equal, but some technologies are a bit more equal than others. In other words, unlocking certain skills and certain capabilities is different than others. Here I want to show you a bit in a nutshell what we mean. So basically, simple technologies require very few capabilities to be unlocked, while complex technologies require a much wider set. And so easy technologies are easy to replicate. Everybody can replicate them, but complex one cannot. Now, of course, we cannot see the capabilities of the countries, but we infer the capabilities using some innovation outputs, which is patents. So what we do in the paper, so we start from the concept of RCA, the relative comparative advantage. For those that do not know what it is, so basically you have patents by country, by technological field, the number, and then you make this ratio. So the number of patents that a country has done in a specific field over the number of patents that a specific country has in all fields, divided by the number of patents that all countries have in a specific fields, and then the total number of patents across all countries, across all fields. So this gives you a little bit the degree of specialization of a country given how much it is to patents in a specific field. Once you have this, you have the RCA for all countries, for all technologies.
Sorry.
Yes.
If a country produces almost no patents
Yes.
in total, then we still are going to say that as large relative
If that
they specialize. So if I only produce 10 patents
Yes.
in one particular subfield, that's it.
if that field at global level has a lot of patents, then you will not, because I'm accounting for both how much patents you have in that field
Has to be moved the country.
and how many patents are produced in that field overall across the world. Yes. So then we apply the KCI algorithm developed by Hidalgo et al., which is nothing else than basically the second larger eigenvector so associated to the matrix that I was talking before, minus its mean divided by its standard deviation. And this KCI will basically rank countries based on how complex is their knowledge that they have endowed. And you can do the same for technologies and rank technologies based on how complex those technologies are, hard to replicate those technologies are.
Sorry, can you just explain what exactly that's supposed to be doing? Why do we care about the second largest eigenvector?
Why do we care about the second largest? That's a good question, but I'm not entirely sure. But this is how it's done in the literature. So we just take it from the literature, and it measures basically how often. So it's an iterative process. It goes and looks how often that same technology is appearing across different countries, and whether the countries that have that specific technologies are a high RCA in other technologies which are high in terms of complexity. It's a nonlinear combination between diversity and ubiquity, where ubiquity is how rare a specific technology is in average, and diversity is how many different technologies a country is specialized on. And then you can do this for both the country, so this one, or the technology. And then after that, okay, another measurement that you can do is the so-called relatedness. So the relatedness goes and measure basically for each technologies, what are the technologies which are often close within the technological space to that technology. And the relatedness is for a specific country, what is the potential of developing a specific technology, let's say AI, based on the relatedness that this technology has and the capabilities, so the specialization of that region with other technologies. So basically, this is going to predict how much a specific region is likely to develop a specific technology based on the specialization on the other technologies which are related to the technology that we are interested in. So we compute all of these measurements, and then we do some descriptives. Where do we take the data? So this is Google Patents data, country level, for all the different technological classes. This is CPC codes, which then we aggregate to WIPO codes, as done in the literature. And we redo these metrics, we recompute the algorithms for different periods, and I will be showing you the latest period, which is most useful for us. So what do we see?
Sorry, can you just back up what's the overall research question?
So we want to see how the European Union is performing compared to international competitors on those most sophisticated technologies. And we want to know with who we should collaborate the most, which countries have highest level of complementarities by technology. So the idea is, are we specialized in the most complex or in the less complex technologies? And the second idea is, which countries have the complementarity skills on those technologies that we lack, so that we can collaborate with them potentially. So this is the ranking of the most the technology which we find as most complex. Unsurprisingly, we have digital technologies which rank the highest. Then we have semiconductors, the medical sector, green technologies are here, and the least complex are instead transport, handling, mechanical elements, material, metallurgy, engines, pumps, machine tools, so civil engineering, more, let's say, mechanical, old technologies. As you may expect, the EU is going to be mostly strong and specialized on those low-tech technologies. China, very strongly here. The US, mostly in the medium, high, the health sector. And this is very important because in the literature has been shown that those high-tech technologies are those which will guarantee long-term productivity for the country which is strongly specialized in it. So what we do, we say, okay, let's plot based ranking technologies as by complexity, the latent density, so the likelihood of future specialization for each technology by country, and the RCA, so the present specialization in that technology by country. What you see is that the EU has a diminishing slope. So as the complexity of the technology diminishes, the present and future specialization on that technology of the EU increases. Whereas for the China is the opposite, and for the US is again the opposite. And this is a problem because we would like to be stronger on those technologies which endow of higher expected returns in the future. If we look at the technological complementarities, yes.
Do you have also some information about time dimension? Like, for example, if we think about the 2000, we can think of tech companies were the ones with the largest return, but now we don't know if really computer technology can be what we want to invest on. Maybe it is, but
so
like if you think about trends,
yes.
How would you?
So if you recompute this, that's a very good point. So if we recompute the same metrics for the years before, then of course you don't have the ranking changes, no? So what is today cutting edge, let's say, in the 70s, maybe pharmaceutics is higher, and you see that the most, these medium low go high, right? Because they are, those at the time were difficult to find. So very few countries had the know-how to be strong in chemical engineering, right? So at the time, chemical engineering was higher, and you can really see that from the network. So these, of course, shift, and it will shift in the future, right? But you need to make policies today, given the information that you have today. But in 20 years, something else will come up, and then it will, of course, in the network, it will appear as more difficult to be specialized.
For example, if you see that biotechnologies move from down to up, then you may think, well, maybe we expect that biotechnology is going to move further up even in the future. So that's maybe the one that we want to target. If we look at trends in this technology, then maybe you can see something.
Absolutely. I agree. And here, of course, you have trade-off, right? And the idea is that you do not want everybody, to go just for the top, right? So the idea is that, I will show you later, is that you have a trade-off between how complex a technology is and how related you are to that technology. Because of course, if you are very little related to technology which is very complex, you're gonna require a lot of resources to go in that technology, right? Because you need to jump a lot of technological steps. So maybe you want to go on a technology which is, I don't know, pharmaceutical, green technologies, which is still relatively high, but you have a higher latent density. And with this, you can also do not only aggregated level policy, but more regional smart specialization policy. I think I have a slide on that. Complementarity, you can see that the highest technological complementarities are, from the European Union perspective, are with US, China, Japan, Korea, so those countries which are very advanced. And we have them on the most complex technology. So again, here I'm ranking technology by level of complexity. We don't have a lot of complementarities on those low tech, in which we are already very strong, but we have many complementarities, heterogeneous fashion, on the digital technologies with countries such as US, China, Korea. And this can be useful to know if we, as an example, cannot trade or cannot have partnerships like now with Russia in terms of research. What can be a substitute to do science diplomacy if we cannot go for one country? Can we go with some other country, and what's the best alternative given the specific technology that we are specifically targeting? Okay. No, this is exactly what I was discussing before. Now, this analysis can be done both at country level, but also at regional level, because innovation usually is very localized. And we have, this is from Ballan 2019, this beautiful latency complexity space. So complexity, how complex is the technology, low, high, and relatedness, how the region or the country, in this case region, has potential to develop in that technology based on the technologies which the strength, the technological specialization that they have in the related technology. Okay, so of course, if you have low relatedness to a low-tech technology, well, you have high risk because you have low relatedness and even low benefits because that's a low-tech technology, right? If you have low relatedness on a high complexity technology, instead going for that technology is high risk, right? Because you have low relatedness, it's like you are skipping a bit ahead, but it will have high benefits because at least it's a high complex, right? If instead you have a high relatedness, it means you have a lot of the building blocks to develop and go for that specific technology. If that technology is low complexity, well, low risk, low benefit. And instead, if you have high relatedness and high complexity, this ideally would be the best thing, right? You want to go for this technology because you have low risk, because you have a lot of the building blocks, and that technology is highly complex. So only you can specialize in that technology. Very few other regions can specialize in that technology. And so high benefits, right? It gives you long-term productivity enhancement. And we can compute this for every country, but more interesting for every region. And every region will have a different plot, which means that even the regions which score lower in the European Innovation Scoreboard, in the composite indicators, will have some technologies which are here. They will be different. Maybe are going to be middle level complex technology, low level, high level, medium high, medium low, but you will have them. And those are the technologies which, with a little lesser money, you can have the higher benefits with the lower risk. So here is an example taken for Ile-de-France. As you can see, Ile-de-France is a relatively advanced region, and so you have here computer programming. And let's have a look at another region. I think I put it. Yeah, Silesia, an example, is completely different. It's a less developed region, so the slope is, of course, opposite, right? However, we have some technology, which, as an example, is here or here, printer of the recorded media, manufacture of transport equipment, in which we may prefer to go compared to here, right? Given the same level of complexity, we want to go with technologies which have the same related density, which have higher related density. So if we are targeting a technology which has this level of complexity, let's say 40, instead of this, it's better to go with this because the latent density of that region for that technology is higher, meaning that it's going to be less risky for the same level of expected reward. And yeah, okay, the RCA is just, okay, I'm just showing the size of the bubble is just the RCA, so the present level of specialization.
So who you think of when you talk about you might want to go with, like as an industrial policy?
Yes.
Or is it,
yes.
Do you think like public investment in these sectors? Or?
Yes, this can be, let's say, a guide both for public and private as well. Now, if as a private investor, you are thinking where do you want to invest, and where it is more likely that there is a innovation ecosystem which is ready to develop in that specific technology, then this is an interesting guide map. And it is also for smart policy, right? In which you can redirect potentially taxpayer public money into the technologies and the regions where it's more likely that those will have successful returns.
So
from a taxpayer perspective, I would like to foster computer programming in Silesia as opposed to just give the money to Silicon Valley and then get the returns and redistribute it back to taxpayers in Europe. Is it just a matter of geopolitics, or?
It can be different reasons. Geopolitics, of course, is one, but it's also for, as an example, for computer. I mean, we are using softwares, which are developed in the US. There could be some interest in wanting to have some software and security, privacy, etc., which is developed in Europe. Now with the AI Act, there are a lot of spillovers coming from platforms doing gatekeeping activities or training these algorithms. If we want to make AI policies for the avoiding improper use of AI or for having a humanocentric digital transition, you have more leverage if you also have some key players, which is in the most successful regions, which are more profiting from these investments. Also because these investments will happen anyway. Now, the question is, because we are going to investing this money regardless, right? The point is, what's the best way to allocate those money? Because it won't happen that we just put all the R&D money and give it to Silicon Valley. This money are going to the European regions regardless. But what's the best way to inform the policy settings so that those money reach the places in which they are more effective, right? Okay. Now, so if that was the directing the change, let's have a look also at the counterfactual dimension. So we don't only want to give money, but we wanted to be sure that this money are being useful and bringing added value. So Horizon, of course, we want to verify that this has having a causal impact, and we want to connect the different actors from different regions to a bit compensate for the geographical divide that the European Union suffered. So this is another paper that we did, which fed into the ex-post evaluation of Horizon 2020, which is the framework program before the current one, Horizon Europe. And so existing evidence, what has been done so far? So of course, there are papers from US on US R&D schemes in which they show positive causal impact of R&D grants. In Italy with RDD, they show that those RD grants are most effective on smaller companies. Specifically to the framework program, there is a lot of descriptive evidence, not too much counterfactual, and which is why also I'm here with Max to develop a framework of counterfactual evaluation, which is a bit more consistent and can be deployed consistently with time. The attempt done in the past, the most important is this paper from Santoleri, a colleague of mine, and Ghirelli, another colleague of mine, in which they look at the SMEs instrument, which is a subsection of Horizon 2020. It's a mono-beneficiary instrument, so only one beneficiary, and it's for small companies. And what they found is a positive impact on different outcomes such as patents, investment, and the firm's growth. Another paper was on the ERC, difference and RDD, and in there instead they didn't find any effect of the ERC grants on the researchers' productivity, with the exceptions of some fields, natural science, I was mentioning before, and the younger researchers. So the question of evaluating the overall framework program is still very relevant and very open. And this is because the program is very, very heterogeneous and complex. Here we are. So, as you can see, this is the SMEs instrument of which we were talking before. And this is Horizon 2020. So each of these pillar and each of these subsection within the pillar have different rules. Different evaluation schemes, different one-stage evaluation, two-stage evaluation, mono-beneficiary, multi-beneficiaries. The ranking may change from 100 to 15. As an example, the ERC is 100. Some part of the industrial leadership pillars is 15. But just to explain very briefly, so pillar 1, excellent science, is about giving money for research. These are researchers, right? Universities, young researchers, more senior researchers, etc. Industrial leadership, these are companies. Okay, so this is more innovation, and this is mostly multi-beneficiaries. So different companies go together, they make a consortium, and they apply together. And societal challenges is more this directionality, SDGs objectives that aim to fix specific societal problems. It can be both universities, companies, and also there is multi-beneficiaries. Now, very important, the same company can apply across different pillars and across different topics. So you can have the same company which apply 30, 40 times. It doesn't really matter. So how did we attempt to evaluate? Well, first of all, we took data from Corda. So Corda is this database that we have in DGRTD with all the applications, informations from companies. We focus on the industrial pillar. So industrial and societal. We leave the ERC outside. So this is companies, private companies. So we have data on who applied, who won, who didn't, and what's the score. So of their application. And then we need Orbis company data. So Orbis is this German database, collects harmonized national business data for many companies. And we collect the two, and then we merge. We merge the two using VAT and some manual disambiguation, and basically we match 80% of the total sample, which is very similar to the result which Santoleri had gotten. So not too bad. And then we do a DID, and we restrict the sample to improve the similarities between the treatment and control group, between only successful and unsuccessful applicants which had received a high score. So the very low scores, we just remove them, and we just compare successful and unsuccessful high quality proposals. Now, how the application process works is that calls are constantly open. So every month you have different calls, and companies applies, right? So you have heterogeneity into the treatment across time, right? And even the size of a grant can be different. So you also have heterogeneity of the treatment across the different companies that are applying.
So if you condition on high score, but determines the difference between successful and unsuccessful?
I mean, you get a smaller sample, and you get a pre-trend which is actually more fitting because.
But I mean, like just purely in terms of how the program is administered, why am I unsuccessful if I got a high score?
Yes. Okay. So basically, how the program works like this. So let's say that you have 15 points in which you can evaluate, right? 10 is the minimum score that you need to get to be, let's say, considered eligible. If you don't get at least 10, which is high quality, even if there is enough money, you don't get funded because the project is considered not high quality enough. If you're above, right, then based on how much money there is in the program, you get the cutoff. So the cutoff is not fixed. The cutoff is based on the monetary availability, right? So for certain calls, it's going to be 12 points. For certain 14, for certain 10, for certain 8, but they fund only up until 10.
But it is a mechanical quality cutoff, just as a cutoff that's endogenous.
Yes. Can you repeat?
So it's always the ones with the highest points that get funded.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
Yes, always. You cannot. Yes, it's a mechanical cutoff. You cannot go lower. So even if there is funding, but the application is considered low quality, you don't get it.
But there's no other criteria that go into the decision, is what I mean.
No. But okay, no, yes. But so you're correct. And there are actually two cutoffs. So there is the high quality, and then there is the minimum requirement. So the one before was the minimum requirement. Then the high quality is what we call that you get the commission stamp of quality work. Okay, which the idea is if you don't get funded, but you were among the high quality, then you can use it to get money from the private sector. So the one that we actually use is the second one, not the minimum requirement. You are correct. Thanks for the question, Max. Yes. So this is like the certificate of high quality. So there are some that are high quality and many and do not get funded, but they can use this to get funding somewhere else. I don't know, venture capital or some other, because they say, look, we were actually among the top in the competition for getting funding at the Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, so we deserve your money. Yes.
Should we think about the source of randomization here coming from the time at which the company applied to the funds? Because if apply later, then there are less funds.
No, I think, of course it is possible. I would have to check if there is a non-uniform distribution of the spending of the money. I think it should be pretty uniform in the sense that we don't spend all the money at the beginning and then very little at the end. I can check that to see how what's the rolling of the expenses of the money. But there shouldn't be any political cycle, let's say, in how we spend the amount of money that we are putting into the across years. Yes. So another hand.
So each time you spend, there's like some firms that get it and some firms that are just below the cutoff. Can you not just compare firms that are just above and just below? You have like randomization.
Yes.
Can you do an RDD?
Yeah.
In principle, yes, we can do an RDD. There is a reason why we don't do it, and that's because we do not have the exact score for all the calls. Because of course the execution of the calls is often done by the agencies, and for some call with the 2 rounds, they just give you above or below. They don't give you the exact score. So you have for some calls in which you have a very nice score, and for other calls in which you don't have the nice score. And so either if you want to do for everything, you cannot do an RDD. You can do an RDD for the SMEs instrument, as an example, for the ERC, as Santoleri did, because there you have a very nice, smooth score which jump by 0.5 and 0.5, and so you can handle it. But if you want to do everything all together, you have some calls for which you do not have a score. Okay, so some descriptives to give you a bit of an idea of the thing. So many companies, as you can see, I'm plotting here how many times the same unique company is applying to Horizon 2020. So you can say in average, every company applied 2.2 times, so to different projects. And there are many companies, so 40,000 is the number of unique companies that we have in the sample. I don't know, 1,100 companies have applied to 7 different projects, 7 different calls. And this is also very heterogeneous across program parts. So many companies, 1,330 applied 5 different program parts. So there is a lot of, I apply here and I win, I apply there and I lose. So when we select the control group, we actually need to pay attention that we are only selecting those that have never won. Yes. Some other descriptive is, of course, from Orbis, we do not have the financials from all companies for all years, but here you can see a little bit the number of companies that for which we have observations by the year, right? And the mean of the 3 outcome variables that we use, which are log employment, log investments, and revenue. So method, as you know, there have been a lot of evolution in the difference universe. It has been shown that the old-fashioned two-way fixed effect model is not always the best way to compute the average treatment effect, particularly when we have heterogeneous treatments. So what we do, we go for the Callaway-Santana 21 approach, and we do it for 2 main reasons. First, because in this way we can deal with the fact that the treatment effect is scattered through time, and we can deal with the fact that we can condition the parallel trend to certain characteristics, which in our case are going to be country NACE and something else. So this is the regression equations. This is the DID. So we have the coefficients before the treatment, the coefficients after the treatment, and the different and the fixed effect. So it's company fixed effect, ER fixed effect, and we condition based on NACE, country of origins, and the number of times that
Isn't the coefficient it's not on the previous, right?
No, it's not. You're right. Yes. Okay. I think I got it wrong. Okay. Yeah. You're right. It is. is not. So this I need to change. Okay, so basically we run the Catania et al. DID, and this is what we get. As a whole, so everything put together, you can see the ATT plots for revenues and employment and total assets. The clearer results is for employment, so you see this increase of around 20% company level in the upcoming 5 years after the receive of the grant. And we see also for revenues and for total assets, it's less clear. Now, what's interesting is when we look at the results by NACE, because not all NACE show positive results. And the NACEs that get the best results are the scientific and professional NACE and the ICT. Most of other NACE instead show insignificant results. I'm showing you here for professional, scientific, and technical activities. These are the overtreatment effects. For employment, this was clearly the one that is driving the main results in the whole evaluation, and similar results, but just larger for total assets and revenues. The ICT has a similar patterns.
Did
Yes.
you have to any follow-up reports that people had to write about the grant, and could that be driving the employment?
So there is, but it's very little, in the sense that one problem that we actually have is that we do not have a lot of follow-up information. So in terms of surveys, we would like to have more of that, and but once they get the money, it's
just cash in hand in the firms.
Exactly. And so that's a problem also even for publications, because we are planning also with Max to add some other outcome variables, publication patents. We cannot rely on the publications or on the patents declared by the companies because they're all empty. It's voluntary, so nobody does it, and so you need to rely on other sources and then merge with the data. So we do not even have the information on the publication or patents which arise, because all of this is voluntary information. So there is not a lot of follow-up. Yeah. So next steps. So what to do next? There are many different things that could be done, right? We could be looking at what's the role of the number of beneficiaries which are inside the same consortium. What's the size of the grants? Does it matter? Do we get better results with larger size of consortium, with the smaller size of grants? Does it matter if we exploit somewhat of the exogeneity in the criteria of the evaluation of giving the money? We've discussed about that today. Field domains. Does it make do we need to frame different size of different procedures for different fields of research? And also, what if we compare between receiving the EU grants and receiving alternative member state grant? So what if we use that as a counterfactual instead than just not receiving? Because you will have some of those that didn't get the EU grant, which may have gotten a member state grant or may have not gotten a member state grant using the very same similar proposal. So that is something that will make sense to investigate. Level of analysis, what we have seen is individual effect, but when we move from individual company effect to aggregate region or country effect, which is what most policymakers care about, there are different crowd out and knowledge spillovers which may diminish the aggregate effect or increase the aggregate effect. So trying to look for a way to aggregate this causal evidence at higher level, could be of interest. And of course, different policy objectives, as an example, patents and biotechnology. We have seen that the sectors which are, yes?
What's the difference between getting an EU and a member state grant? Is there any collaboration clauses?
No. So of course the EU tried to be complementary with its RNI grants to the different member state RNI funding, but there is always there can be always a level of substitution, right? And understandably, if you are, I don't know, for Germany and you didn't win the Horizon Europe grant, you may try to reuse the same grant application for the German financing growth fund or innovation fund, right? And then when you do the counterfactual, that might factor in what we are capturing.
I mean, is there a difference to the company and what they're getting, or are they getting the same thing?
Yeah, you get the same money, but from different entities.
So there are no different stipulations within this.
Every country will have its own. The main difference is that in Horizon, for most of the calls, we are forced to collaborate across member states, right? So that what you lose as a German company, if you get the money from the German Department of Innovation, is that you're not pushed to collaborate with Italy and I don't know, Bulgaria as an example. And so that's actually a very important thing to go and verify if there is an added value in there, right? Because you're measuring the added value of collaborating across member states, which we were highlighting as a problem that in Europe we lack. Yes. And different policy objectives, so patents, social outcomes, publications. Is it more effective in more complex technologies or is it in less complex technologies? Does that have an effect or not? I want to finish building upon, I added this slide during the presentation because of what Marco said on the better grant evaluation and selection process. Because of course in this, the preferences of the policymakers has an impact. And there is this very interesting paper of a colleague of mine, Eric, in which he basically made a survey to policy officers and officials in the European Commission, in which type of method do they think is better to allocate grants for research. So merit is the merit base, only the quality matters. Portfolio approach is what he called, is basically considering also the cost, okay? So the optimization process problem. You have the score, how much the quality is, but also given how much cost financing it, or also other factors. Is it more on the green, then it may have more importance, or is it on other stuff which are less on the political discussion, or a hybrid between the two or others. And as you can see, the merit approach is likely preferred. The portfolio approach, some more complex, sophisticated methods is not preferred. And what's also very interesting is that there is heterogeneity in this answer if the people surveyed were able to resolve a simple optimization problem. So they were asked to solve a simple optimization problem, and those that were not able or to give the correct answer were preferring the merit or a modification of the merit approach much more compared to those that were able to solve it, and then they were going for, okay, let's go a portfolio approach. In the paper, he has also some regression analysis. They basically show the same thing. And with this, I think I finished.
Thank you very much.